Hey everybody, welcome back to the Overwatch League Report. I'm Brian.
I'm Ben.
And Ben, we are very excited because our team made the Stage 1 playoffs. Nobody, except maybe you, believed in them coming into the season.
I coming into the season, but if you watch last week's review, I did predict that they were not the favorites to win against the Fuel. So
Right. Of course.
I lost faith briefly, but
faith has been restored with a reverse sweep over the Dallas Fuel. What a crazy game.
Yeah, no, definitely. Coming in, they lost the first two maps, and halftime, it was looking like their shot was done. They came back, reverse swept, and they had to wait for Vancouver to win on Sunday. So, yeah.
I think in the Wicked Good Everything group chat, you were like, hey, reverse sweep. But I feel like it was just like oh man, this sucks, but we'll try to pretend to be positive.
Yeah.
But it happened. They reverse swept the Fuel. And of course, Jayne was talking a little bit of shit on Twitter leading up to the game. And then he got trolled pretty mercilessly afterwards.
Well, he got trolled before and after. Like there was like a setup troll.
Right.
Yeah.
So so let's give a shout out where it's due on Twitter to @UprisingFans who were all over Jayne. Jayne, of course, tweeted, good morning to everybody except the Boston Uprising, to which they responded with a flowchart of this stage of life of the Dallas Fuel fans, which included like beating Shanghai, like getting your hopes up, looking good, choking, people like calling for the coach's staff to change. And they were, when Jayne tweeted that, they said this year at the getting your hopes up stage. And after they lost, they put them at you're here now at the choking stage.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I think he's been a pretty good sport about it. I saw he retweeted one of the Boston players, like, tweeted good afternoon to everybody except the Dallas Fuel after the game.
Yep. It was good. I mean, like, I like the trash talk. I appreciate that, and
I love it. I want more of it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like
it made it so much more fun.
People get on like Dogman and stuff for like shouting out in the middle of the match at like Cruz's feet and all that, but like right. I don't know. I think it's fun. It's just
I do, Jayne. If you're watching this, unlikely, but if you are, keep doing it. We love it.
Well, we got a comment from the official.
That's true.
Fuel, yeah.
Maybe that was Jayne. Who knows? But if anybody who knows Jayne, just tell him that we appreciate the trash talk very
fun,
much. Yeah, it's super fun. It's what makes this feel like more of a real league,
Yeah,
more
for sure,
of like a legitimate thing, like people are passionate about. Which I've been enjoying it quite a bit, watching it for this first year consistently, and of course covering it. But Ben, I hate to be a downer. They made the playoffs, but they're playing a pretty good team in round one in the Vancouver Titans. What do you think about them after this week?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things to talk about with both the Uprising and the Titans. So the Uprising, first of all, looking at their shortcomings across the first stage and across especially their match against the Fuel and why they kind of dropped the first two maps. It's not a secret. Their biggest issue is facing up against Sombra. So,
it is not a secret.
This is not an issue, by the way, that's unique to the Uprising, which we'll talk about. I'll hit on later. But the main thing that we've done, or that the Uprising has done to combat this, has been AimGod has gotten much better at trying to stay out of EMP and then coming in with Trance and basically nulling the EMP effect because the Trance is able to keep the team alive during the effect. However, if we look at the issues they faced in the Fuel match, one of the big things is Fusions, who is known for his very aggressive playstyle, which is good and has done a lot for them in the past, and even in this match, Fusion's aggressive playstyle was able to win them fights that they shouldn't have otherwise won.
Right.
However, when playing against Sombra and against EMP, he is still dying when they get EMP'd, even after Aim God comes in and transes.
Right.
This has happened multiple times in that match. It's happened even in previous matches as well. And so I think something that needs to be looked at if the Uprising are going to play against Sombra, not even just in the playoffs, but into the future, if this like Goats plus Sombra setup is still a thing in Stage 2, which it may or may not be.
Right.
They need to be able to have fusions play less aggressively when there's a potential for an EMP to come in that fight, so that they're able to try and survive and maintain through that fight a little bit better. And they're not just blowing trances on a fight that's going to be lost either way because fusions gets killed.
It's a very good point. And so on the flip side, what did Vancouver show you this week? And then I think definitely last week where they had to go to 5 games to beat the Hunters.
Yeah, no, I think that both the Hunters match where they almost lost and this match against the Charge, which was on paper like it looked like a blowout, right? Because 4-0, there wasn't really a ton of closest in many of the maps. The closest map did come down to map 1 Ilios, where they went to 3 points. And I think that the point they lost on Ilios definitely confirms a lot of the suspicions that people had of them after the Hunters match, which is that they don't have a good way to counter these like flex compositions, basically like non-Goats compositions. So these DPS heavy things where we have, Happy coming in on Widow and just kind of tearing them apart. We have all of the weird things that the Hunters were able to do. They just don't have an answer for that. They can't do what they do normally, which is just run Goats and just like face roll, because that's what they're good at. They're good at just like putting on an insane amount of aggression to the point where you can't do anything about it. But against these weird comps, they don't have the ability to play their own game. And so I think coming in against the Uprising for the first round, they're in a phenomenal position to win that matchup, unfortunately, for Uprising fans, because Boston has shown that they're basically incapable of playing anything other than Goats.
Right.
They've done nothing but play Goats. They haven't even flexed Sombra. They've played just the standard Goats composition from start to finish, pretty much every match, 100% of the time. So that's a major issue. But even looking at Vancouver going forward, if they beat the Uprising, playing against teams like the Shock or the Reign or the Dynasty, these are like potential teams they might face in a semifinals match. There's definitely potential there for them to fall before reaching this like coveted XL Titans, match of the gods.
I know it's hard because I wanted to say Titans too, and then I was like, wait, no, it's not a clash of Titans. There's only one Titans.
Yeah, match of the Titans and the SL. Yeah,
right.
But yeah, so I mean, but this is actually something that you can see played out on the maps, like by looking at the maps that the Titans have lost at stage. They've lost on Nepal, Hollywood, Anubis, Rialto, and twice on Route 66. And these are all maps that have the opportunity to feature DPS heavy compositions. You look at like Anubis and Route 66 especially. The only map in here in like the stage 1 map pool that they have done well on, quote unquote well on, that has these weird compositions played on it a lot is Horizon. But the 2 teams they beat in Horizon were Valiant and Eternal. And Valiant have been a total like unmitigated mess. And the Eternal are like Horizon is also one of their worst maps. So you're looking at the potential for facing up against a team like the Reign, who can pull out these crazy comps and like be able to play them well, And if they end up with a map pool for that match that is unfavorable to them because it contains some of these maps that have the ability to play these weird compositions on them, then we could see a potential for the Titans to drop out before they hit the finals. So I think that they need a little bit of luck here in order to be matched up against a team that they can beat, a team that they can play goats on, maps that they can play goats on, that they can just play their style on their turf.
Fair enough. So I want to give a quick shout out to the Dynasty. As I've been told, this is the very first time they've ever made a stage playoffs.
Yeah, any kind of playoffs. They also missed out on the league playoffs or the season playoffs last season as well. By a little bit.
And as a reward for that, they get to play the XL.
Are they guaranteed to play the XL, or are they doing a tiebreaker match against the Shock?
Oh, I did not know that this was a thing. Let me know about this tiebreaker match.
I believe because there are two quote unquote ties right now. There's the Fusion, the Defiant for third, and there's the Shock and the Dynasty for sixth slash seventh, so third slash fourth and sixth slash seventh. I believe what they are doing are playing tiebreaker maps for the seeding. I don't know when those tiebreaker matches would take place. So I have to try and figure out what's going on with that.
Yeah, so we'll have to look at if they do a tiebreaker map, we'll either write a blog or if we have time, do another quick one of these to kind of round it out. But yeah, so I guess we can't talk specifics. What of these teams? Obviously, we have the XL, who they're probably the favorite to win the playoffs still, like you just said, with the potential weaknesses of Vancouver. Can you give me a dark horse of these other teams that could potentially win this stage playoff?
Yeah, so I think that the Defiant is a team that has surprised a lot of people. I talked about preseason how they kind of had this like Uprising season 1 feel where they're kind of taking some known entities and putting them together with like some lesser known players and kind of making this like Moneyball stew.
Right.
Yeah, I said that like if a team is going to be able to pull that off this season and like really surprise people when people are like ranking them mid to low and they end up in a very high finishing position, I thought it was going to be the Defiant.
Right.
And they've definitely proven that they have that capability. Having Neko back in the lineup after his suspension has given them a major boost. He's really, really strong Zenyatta, one of the more underrated in the league, in my opinion. And I think that they have a huge potential to be one of these teams that can maybe make some upsets happen. I think that you mentioned that the XL are the odds-on favorite to win. I think the issue with trying to predict how the XL might lose is that they don't really have any kind of glaring flaws like some of these other teams did. Like I just talked about some of the flaws that the Titans have, even though the Titans are right now the number 1 seed above the XL. They have weaknesses, and it's been really difficult to find any kind of weakness for the XL. So one thing that we can potentially look at is the San Francisco Shock, who have been able to kind of find these like weird sweet spot positions in some of their matches where they're able to play kind of a like. So I was talking earlier about the Vancouver Titans play a very like aggressive face rolly style of goats, and the NYXL kind of play a very strange style where like goats in general is very built around the main tank. So you have these main tanks like Fusions who are just like the stars of the show a lot of the time. They're making these big plays. Everything is like protect the main tank, put the harmony on the main tank, put the bubble on the main tank.
Right.
But the XL have always classically been built around Jonak. And having a team that's playing this kind of a composition where you're trying to like make your flex support player be the star is just very very strange, and it leads to this kind of play style that's very difficult to work around because it runs counter to general logic. But because Jonak is so good, and because his Zenyatta play style is so aggressive and so unique, it works for them. And because obviously their talent is like their individual talent is so high. So the thing that we can potentially look at is the play style that the Shock have shown, where they're able to kind of like strike this balance between this aggression that we've seen also this recently from the Dynasty on the back of Fisher, and this kind of more passive style of play where you just allow your flex support player to just really go off and just make sure that you're hitting trances every 45 seconds to a minute and you're just not dying. And like, I think that the Shock have the potential to play that sort of game. They have, Violet coming in, who is, I think that, again, one of the more underrated Zenyatas in the league, even though he is ranked very highly. So I think that they are, if there's a team that's going to topple the XL before this fated finals match, it might be the San Francisco Shock. Which is strange because the Shock are not seeded very highly right now. They might end up seeded in 7th. So, but I think that's a potential matchup to look at if that comes to be. They might, New York might get lucky, and Vancouver might play the Shock and beat the Shock.
Right.
But I think if there is a dark horse team to look at for the playoffs, it's the San Francisco Shock. I think they have the highest capability to beat both of the top two contenders. I think they have the ability to play a style that counters New York. I think they have the capability, like they have a lot of really strong TPS players, that haven't seen a ton of play, but they've been flexed in now and then on certain maps, where if they play against the Titans and they get the right map pool, which I believe the way that the playoffs is working is there is some kind of like map pick system, which is different than how the regular season matches works. So there might be a way for the team like the Shock to take advantage of that and play against Vancouver's style. So that's what I would definitely look at. So I think the only other team we haven't really talked about is the Atlanta Reign.
Right. Do you want to touch on them before we sign off for the night?
Yeah, for sure. So the Reign are really interesting. Like they, despite coming into this last week with a huge advantage in terms of making the playoffs and getting a good seed, they basically barely squeaked into the playoffs. They lost against the Hunters, and then they beat the Outlaws. And the Outlaws are not good right now. They're not good at all. But they were able to play up to the Reign's. Like they were able to play into the Reign a decent amount despite that. So that's really scary if you're a Reign fan, in my opinion. Again, as I mentioned earlier with the Uprising, where they have a Sombra problem, I think the Reign also have a really underrated Sombra problem. You look at the Outlaws match, the way that the Outlaws were able to take advantage of the Reign was Dante. It was Dante hitting these EMPs that just tore the team apart. They'd just lose fights that they shouldn't have lost because just this one ult was able to single-handedly tear them apart. And then Houston would have an ult advantage coming into the next fight, and they'd be able to snowball.
Right.
So, and then you look at also the Hunters match where you have Elsa coming in, and Elsa's able to make these EMP plays that totally tear apart the Reign, and these other players like Jinmu can clean up. So I think that Boston has shown that they are capable of countering Sombra to an extent.
Right.
I haven't seen the support players, Masa to an extent, but I haven't seen the flex support players, Kodak and Dogman, be able to play the way that Aim God is able to play against EMP. And so if the Reign end up facing a team that is able to run a strong Sombra, then I just can't see them making it in the playoffs at all. Like I just can't see them winning a single match.
Right. That's fair.
So.
I mean, Somber's a scary hero, Ben.
Yeah.
I
Very
never
scary.
knew before this stage of the Overwatch League. I always thought she was okay, whatever, but she scares me, man.
No, I remember. I think it was like a week or two before the season started. It was in one of Jenny's streams. She asked me, how do you counter goats? And I said, you run goats, but you swap out Diva for Sombra, which is what a lot of contenders teams are doing now. And that meta is evolved into what it is now in Owl. So that's what we have.
Yep, you got Sombra goats, Soats, as no one calls it because that sounds awful. Ben, is there anything else you want to touch on before we sign off?
No, I'm very excited for these playoffs. I think there are a lot of really interesting matchups we can see. I'm very excited that the Uprising made it.
Yes, they made it.
Even if they lose immediately to Vancouver, the fact that they made it is just like, it really kind of shows a lot of people who were doubting them preseason, doubting their scouting ability, that they still have it and they still can potentially make a run at it this season.
Exactly. All right, Ben, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ben Sharon. On Twitch, I'll be in like the chats occasionally for We Could Get Everything at Trey of Spades. So, yeah. If you want to hop on the Discord, I'm gonna try and hopefully do some. If people show up, I'll do it. Like I did it for the first couple, but like nobody would like show up, mostly because we didn't really advertise it very well.
Yeah, let me know this time. We'll advertise it more.
Yeah. So I'll be in the Discord, in the public Discord for We Could Get Everything, and if people are there talking, I'll jump into like we have a voice chat channel in there to do some like commentary and as I watch the matches. So.
Yeah, and make sure you stick around here by hitting subscribe and clicking that bell icon. People say it does stuff. I've clicked a lot of bell icons for a lot of channels. I don't get any push notifications or anything like that. So, who knows? Let us know your thoughts on who you think is going to win this week in the comments down below. And you can check us out on twitch.tv/WeGetEverything for some streams. I know Starry and Jenny will be streaming there as well as here on youtube.com/WeGetEverything. Make sure you check out our blog at www.WeGetEverything. And if you liked what you saw here and you just want to see more, we have a ton of other videos. We have video essays. We have news updates. We have more Overwatch League content. We just got a lot, and I think you'll like it. If you liked this video anyways. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.